to put it like that. This is going to be, you cannot tell me that the in-between, which is the bulk of your life, should be ignored for only those little like crowns that stick out. And I really need to work on this, man. I'm going to literally go and listen to this once you've post-edited it. and I'm going to really try and actively apply this in my life, man. I really enjoyed this topic.
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips and tricks to help you not only discover but also reach your ultimate goals. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Real Life Tips podcast. Again, another great episode coming up. Stick it out. It's episode number 32. I'm your host, Mono.
You're joined by Leon as usual. Welcome back, everyone. Stoked to have you here. Happy to be here. Happy to be recording once again. Doing one of our favorite things, talking to you guys, laying down some interesting facts, bringing some interesting topics to you, hopefully, leaving you here with something new, something that betters you, something that can improve your life. And that's really what we are set out to do here. I think we mentioned this in the beginning in some of our first episodes, and we've, I believe, very much improved since then. And it's maybe time to just say that again, Martin, is that we are here to pretty much be quite selfless, and I said selfless, not selfish.
Yeah.
We do this for ourselves because it makes us happy to help people, yes, but we are doing this genuinely, deeply to help hopefully someone that listens and comes across this content, and we try and do it in a way more relatable, I would say almost. We want to try and do it in a way that makes sense to most people and not just the select few like academic people that sign into like, the very hardcore psychological type of podcasts. So we touch on difficult topics. We touch on things that will definitely make you think a little bit, but we try and do it entertainingly enough so that you stick around and find it interesting, maybe even have a bit of a laugh. So really, really happy to have you here once again. Episode 32. It feels like yesterday that we started this, but it's actually been, what is this now, like 8 months or something that we've been doing this.
Yeah.
And I haven't looked back. This is a lot of fun.
It's been such a great journey, Leon. And if you guys are out there and you're brand new to the show, welcome. Welcome to the very first episode that might actually change your life, because that's the only reason that we're here, is not really just sharing insights and new information, and believe strongly in the fact that knowledge is potential power.
Yep.
But we also believe in the second part of that, which is applied knowledge is power. So how can you take the knowledge that you consume from this show, the research that we try and share with all of our listeners out there on an ongoing basis, to really help them change their lives and to really help them improve the way that they think, the perspective that they have on life, how to really just live a more positive life. And how to just enjoy the little things in life, and how can you actually go about touching those closest to you in your closest social circles as well. So another great episode coming up, Leon. I'm really, really stoked to be sharing this episode with our listeners again tonight, and for us to deep dive into this topic. This is one that is extremely close to my heart.
Yep.
It's something that I've been struggling with for such a long time, and you know what the show is all about, you and me digesting research and information, our own issues,
our own problems, right? Just putting it out.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So when we started the show, we talked a little bit about the fact that we, on an ongoing basis, even way before the show existed, we used to call each other up and just chat about life issues and things, and just help each other through these things. Exactly, right? So a lot of the research that we come across, we tend to digest during these little phone calls or social sessions of ours. Yeah. And what a better way to do that than actually recording it as well and sharing it with other people.
And I think one of the things that we do really well is we try and apply it. We almost like challenge each other to try and apply it. You want to see that difference of that information making in that person's life. I mean, I want to challenge you right now. Go and think about the wisest people you've ever met. It might be your grandmother, grandfather, father, stepfather, whatever it might be. They come across so wise. But how many times have you actually challenged their wisdom and try and identify where they've applied that self-known wisdom in their own lives? Mm-hmm. It's so frequent that you speak to these people, and again, there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. But we really try and make an impact in saying that take this wisdom and do something about it. That's why we have the action steps at the episode. That's why we've got the real life tips section, is because we do believe that this can change your life, and 100% in a positive way. Nothing we've ever done here, I think, can detract from your life. But there's too many people dying with such a lot of wisdom at old age. But if you look at their lives, nowhere did they really apply that wisdom. They just sat with it, almost like they were waiting to pass it on to a grandchild that can hopefully do something with it. So we're here to challenge you and say, do something about it. Take the wisdom. It's here. It's for free. We're trying to do it in an entertaining way. And do something with the information that you get from this show. And if you do that, that is really our job accomplished. That's our heart's desire from the show, is to actually make an impact. If we do it on one person, that's already a win for us. So that's really what the show is about. Tonight's show is no different. Mani, you do the lead-ins. What are we going to talk about tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be interesting because we're going to talk a lot about people like ourselves who constantly live in the future. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean by like you constantly want the best technologies and you constantly want the coolest things and you're constantly looking out for new things in the latest cars and the latest gadgets and gear and all that. What we're talking about living in the future, we mean, what happens if you forget to live in the moment? What happens if you're constantly planning where you're headed? So a lot of our shows are highly geared towards goal setting and making sure that you know where you're headed in order for you to actually start planning that and actioning that plan to achieve those goals. But what happens if you're so focused on... Exactly, yeah. And what happens if you're so focused on the plan and the goal that you just want to get to the next milestone and the next one and the next, and you kind of look forward to that. So tonight's episode is going to be really, really insightful. I'm really stoked to digest this with you, Leon, because this is something that resonates with me. It's something that I struggle with on an ongoing basis. So we're going to split it up into two different parts. The first half of it is going to be geared towards sort of short-term future, when we say living in the future, and that's when you're just pushing through the week just to get to the weekend, or you're just pushing through the month just to get to the end of the month to get that paycheck, and you just keep recycling that same old loop over and over again. So looking at it from a short-term perspective, but also looking at it at a long-term perspective. What happens if you're looking at the next 3 years and you've got a plan for something that you're saving towards a goal, to buy a house or to buy that new car or to go on that family holiday, international family holiday. Maybe you're just waiting for this pandemic to play out so that everything can go back to normal so that you can actually start living your life again. What happens if you sit back and wait and you completely forget to live in the moment? And that's something that I'm highly guilty of as well, and focused on tonight. Is I really want to find out not only how this happens and why this happens, but how can we break free from that? How can we live in the now? How can we be more mindful about what's happening in our lives at the moment? Because life waits for no one and time flies by, Leon. So I think I'm really, really stoked to unpack this entire concept here tonight.
Yes, I'm stoked and nervous. Like, it's the first time on the show I'm going to admit that I'm a bit nervous, because this is probably one of the most acute worries that I've started realizing in my own life as I'm now really starting to, I feel like I'm aging at the most rapid rate ever. I think it's almost like, what's really sad? If I think back on this year, again, if you're listening to this in 2040, we're right in the smack middle of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. I almost want to forget this year. But when I say that, I realize how bad it sounds to say that you want to throw away 365 days and forget about it as if it was never there. And I know where it's coming from, and I think a lot of people feel like that. But the older I'm getting and the more I'm realizing, dude, you are now halfway through your 30s, leaning towards 40s. I'm really, really wanting to slow things down. And the more I try and do it, it's almost as if stuff just runs away from me. And I seem to develop more and more responsibilities, which means I need to achieve things to be able to live up to those responsibilities, which means I need to rush towards achievements the whole time to get to be able to carry that weight, of the new responsibilities, whether that new responsibility is, I don't know, short-term debt on a car or long-term debt on a house or whatever it might be. You keep rushing towards something so that you can keep upholding this thing that you consider growth. But in the meantime, you're literally just burning the candle at both ends. And I am super worried about this for me because I can't really tell you I can come clean now. Tomorrow's actually the day after tomorrow is my birthday. It would be my 36th, I believe. I'll have to double check with my wife and my birth certificate. But I think it's 36, and I cannot really tell you exactly what I did from 30 to now.
Yeah.
Like there's
It's
there's some major peaks that obviously stand out. Mostly, unfortunately, materialistic achievements, and then yes, of course, family life and so on, like major family achievements. But it's really gone past very, very fast, and I know why. It's because I put myself in that fast lane. I wanted to go to the next achievement, go to the next achievement, go to the next achievement, and on it went, and the rat race never stops for me. And I'm at that stage now, and that's why I'm so happy we're finally doing this episode. It's been on the list for a while, that I want to slow it down.
And you have to.
I want to be happy in the moment.
You have to slow it down, because I think in so many cases in our lives, we're constantly focused on these goals, and we hardly ever take time and stop and just breathe in the air. For me, I'm so guilty of this, because I haven't been going on holidays or like enjoying my life or anything. You know me, I'm an acute saver. Like I constantly save money for a better future, for something bigger, for the next phase of my life or the next stage of my life. And as much as that is good for me, and as much as that's a great habit, you kind of need to constantly bring yourself back and remind yourself
shouldn't be the be all and end all.
Exactly. So it's difficult finding the balance between planning your future and still living in the moment, knowing that spending some money here and there on a holiday here and there is okay and it's fine. But it's not just about that. It's about the whole mentality behind it, of going through week after week after month after month after year, just waiting for that next big thing to happen to your life as well, and stopping and saying, snap out of it.
Yes.
Mono, snap out of it. Leon, snap out of it. Stop it now. Just take this moment, whatever you have right here, this is all you have. And if tomorrow comes, it's literally just a combination of today's, the same old cycle all over again. So if you're going to wait for tomorrow and wait for the next day, then you're never going to actually stop and enjoy life. So really, really cool. I think I want to head it off we're starting off and looking at it from the short-term perspective. We've scraped the surface a little bit now on long-term, but we'll unpack it entirely a little bit later in the episode. But Leon, I think perhaps this is where I'll stop, and I'll pass the mic over to you. I want to understand from your side. This is something that I've noticed in you as well. You've brought it up as well when we shortlisted this episode or this topic for tonight, is that you are highly geared towards focusing or pushing through the week to get to the weekend or to get to the end of the month, especially if there's something exciting happening. I know that you're going camping now again soon, and this is probably what happened to you this week as well. I don't know. Is that something? Please tell us more about it.
You're completely right. I torched the whole week. I don't know what I did this week, because I just know that I want to go camping tomorrow. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to train my brain from this. But I noticed it yesterday evening, actually, knowing that we were going to go into this episode and starting to just do a little bit of self-awareness, to realize all the little things that pass me by that I don't nurture and that I don't realize and I don't live it. And for example, my kids are at that age now where they love their dad. They love their mom. Mom is the safe place. If they break a toe or I don't know, it's like my daughter decided it's a good idea to fall twice on her chin in 1 week. they always rush to mommy, right? But they at that stage now where they really enjoy my company. So when I get down from my little home office, they come and sit on my lap and they spend time with me watching a story or talking through stuff or drawing and doing picture. Like my daughter enjoys drawing pictures and stuff. And and I feel so bad saying it, but let me just come out and say that I don't really think I bathe in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't. I kind of always have at the back of my head, cool. The kids are almost ready for bedtime. Then I can go and do a little bit of studying, sleep through, get through the next day of work. I really enjoy my work, so I'm going to at least enjoy that. But it's not even as if that is like moment after moment enjoyment. It's just like after the day I can say I enjoyed, but I don't really know what I enjoyed. I just know that I just burned through 8 hours and I don't know what happened. And I'll just keep doing that consistently throughout the week because something's waiting at the end of the week. There's not a weekend that passes that we just sit at home. We always have something coming up, or we've got a family affair, or we've got, I don't know, like maybe a barbecue, or maybe there's a kid's birthday coming up, or there's a short holiday weekend to break away from the house. Obviously COVID regulation permitting and so on. And from a week-by-week basis, I'm extremely bad. I burn through the week as fast and quick as I can, almost intentionally just to reach the weekends. Even if it is just to be able to slow down, not go upstairs to the office and, I don't know, just go out of like work. I don't really know what it is even. I can't really put my finger on it.
Just disconnecting.
Yeah, just disconnecting like your professional and your slight social life. I mean, I remember this one dude saying in a podcast that we work our butts off 5 days to enjoy to every day, every week of the month. And that's kind of where I'm at, like, truthfully. And I keep doing that. And now what's happening is I'll have like these micro, so you're talking about short term now. So I've got like these micro things at the end of the week that I want to do over a weekend that we kind of plan. It's like you hype it up a little bit. You look forward to seeing someone or whatever. But I also have like this once a month thing. It might be the paycheck that you need to get to because you just bought something major and this month is going tough and you're on like biscuits and tomato sauce until the end of the month. Or whatever it might be. So you might be rushing through the month because you made a major investment in maybe a new washing machine, or, like a appliance or something. Or it could be that you just want to get to the end of the month because that gets you 1 month closer to your December holiday plans. And this is like the bad, poisonous game that happens the whole time. And what I'm realizing now is there's not enough interesting things going on in my life, I guess. And I think this is normal.
Yeah.
I should just know how to see the beauty in the non-interesting stuff as well. I shouldn't be so addicted to major events and just start seeing the beauty in the simple things like the nice warm sun set at night, or a nice warm coffee in the morning with your wife for the first couple of chats. I don't see those things anymore, and I hope I'm not the only person that's feeling like this. But I just burn through this time to get to major events the whole time. I don't care about the in-between, and I really want to fix that.
Yeah, it is. And I think it comes to a lot of us. It's also, looking at it from a financial perspective as well. Have you ever had a really crazy tough month financially because your car broke down, or you had to buy new tires, or you had to buy something or something goes wrong, and now all of a sudden you're pushing through and
you have to get to the end of the month.
It's all you think about. I've been in those situations so many times, and then you literally you're waiting for that paycheck just so that you can feel better again. And, you don't really take the time to slow down and say, all right, you know what, there's still 2 weeks left of this month. We're in the middle of the month. What can we do that doesn't cost money, that we can still, be happy about, that we can still enjoy the time that we spend together? Maybe it's doing something with your wife. Maybe it's doing something with your loved ones, or your family, or your friends.
And before you go off this topic, I'm going to let you continue on that trend just now. But somewhere we taught ourselves, and again, I'm hoping that it's not just for myself that I'm talking now. I'm hoping this is for a lot of people. because otherwise I'm going to feel really bad about myself. But somewhere we've taught ourselves that you can only really have massive amounts of pleasure, like proper pleasure, through money. By doing something materialistic or going to a place that costs money and you have to budget, and that is, I think, the problem. You don't appreciate the small things, the coffee in bed, your kids sitting on your lap playing, with your hair. Anyways, yeah.
And things like eating lobster. I take that as an example because that's something that I've never done in my life. And then maybe a couple of months ago, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, you know what? I've never tried lobster. Let's find a place that actually
and it sucks.
Serves lobster. It sucks, dude. And it's so expensive. And you like tell oysters. Yourself, you know what? I deserve this. I should treat myself. And then instantly you're like, wow, really? Is it even worth the money? So things like that, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's pretty crazy how we associate money with enjoying life. And enjoying things, but then again, we've also touched on this in a previous episode quite a while ago, that some of the happiest people that we've come across in our own personal lives are those who don't really have much. They don't necessarily have the most money, or maybe they do, but they don't really spend it. I mean, they don't live in massive houses and drive fancy cars and go on expensive holidays and stuff like that. But they're happy. They're actually enjoying life and living life in these little moments.
It's almost as if their line between what they can do with money and what they can do without money is much closer together. Like that gap isn't that big. So, for example, just to try and make an example of this, enjoying a cup of coffee with your spouse in the morning versus them being able to rent a movie and sit and watch a movie with their spouse, that might be good enough for them. For some of us, I don't know, young professionals, millennials, guys that like to make money and go and do bigger things, that gap would be sitting and having a coffee with your wife in the morning versus going on a extended holiday or something. So it's almost as if their gap to those two worlds are smaller, so they tend to enjoy both more. Because it's much closer to the norm and not that far from the norm. Whereas our money-induced dopamine weekends are such a huge stretch from your normal life that you look so much forward to it because it's such a big gap from just your regular life.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because there's another point that it reminds me of and it just made me think of is, have you ever noticed that if you're not used to going on these extravagant holidays, or maybe you're not used to spending as much money on enjoying something, and you start going into that mentality of saying, you know what, in the middle of the year or at the end of the year, I'm going to spend X amount to really just, I deserve it. We deserve taking a break and enjoying ourselves. You know how much pressure that puts on you all of a sudden, because you understand that this isn't something normal. This isn't something that you're used to. So you know that you're supposed to be having fun. But have you noticed that you actually end up having less fun because you're so stressed out about it?
This is extremely true. So I actually want to quickly just quote a blog article that I did in preparation for the episode on medium.com. You should really go and read this lady's blog. She is extremely good at this kind of stuff. But she said, we live for the future because we build grand expectations. We put years of happiness on a single moment. And in doing so, we set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful.
That happens all the time.
Better said than I even tried. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I mean, though. Is because we constantly build up our expectations, waiting for that holiday, waiting for that moment, waiting for that new car, waiting for that new TV or something to happen. And then you get it and you're like, okay, cool.
I can actually give you a really, really relevant example. I mean, the first time we live in South Africa, so one of the best local holidays, grand holidays, is to go down to Cape Town, right? The prices, everything there is like international. And one of the things that you have to do is visit Table Mountain. I believe you did it as well and were underwhelmed as well. So we set out, this was like one of the big bucket list things for the month to do, for the week that we were there to do. And we actually, and this is funny, so even on that vacation level, it's as if you kind of rushed through the vacation to get to that one point of, oh, we're going to go on top of Table Mountain. And I remember going up there and I felt, all right, I should be much more happy than I currently feel. I'm cold. The wind is blowing. There's a queue to get into a queue to get to a bathroom.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's amazing. Don't get me wrong. Please go and support it if you're down there. But it was underwhelming. And it's just because my expectations were like, I thought it was going to change my life. And it just didn't. It was another mountain. It was great. I mean, the views were nice. It was ice cold. It was freezing. The wind was blowing. There was queues everywhere. The prices on top of the mountain was ridiculous. And we got off in less than an hour and went back down.
Oh man, I can relate so much. I don't know if you remember, but yeah, of course you do. I mean, this wasn't so long ago when I planned a trip for myself. Well, no, not the Cape Town one, but a couple of years ago, I planned a trip to New York, and this is a big deal for me. This is like my number one bucket list item as well. Again, so much expectation that I've built up over years, decades, man. Like, I mean, this is something that came from me being in school still, seeing the ball drop in, Times Square over New Year's. So it's something that I've always wanted to do. And I planned a trip to New York City, to Manhattan, staying inside Manhattan, literally walking distance from Times Square to be there on New Year's Eve. And
yes,
don't get me wrong, greatest week of my life. But the biggest letdown of that trip was rocking up and listening to people and making friends there, and talking to people and saying, what are your plans for New Year's Eve? And I told them, well, I'm going to go to Times Square and watch the ball drop. And they're like, you're crazy if you want to do that. No problem if you do. But if you go, then make sure that you're there at least 12 or 13 or 14 hours.
Bladder.
Before it, yes, before the time. Exactly, but this is the crazy thing.
There's no beer.
The craziest thing, man. Like I rocked up there maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, man, 11 o'clock, right? I started lining up and they block off, pretty much like a 5-kilometer radius around Times Square and start patrolling and have a ton of cops and everything. And people started lining up and pushing and bumping and everything in the rain. Bear in mind that this is obviously
cold.
like 4 degrees out and it's drizzling and the wind's blowing, and you get there and they tell you, okay, first and foremost, no backpacks. Secondly, no umbrellas. Thirdly, there are no loos or anything inside, no toilets, nothing. And lastly, no food or drinks allowed inside or anything. And also you can't buy anything there. And I was like, what? You guys are crazy, man. There's no way I'm going to do that to myself.
With a ball
so I was
drops.
I probably stuck it out in the pushing crowd and everything. And this was outside of time. This wasn't even like they haven't let people in yet. And I was already like, you know what, I'm out. Hey, I'll watch it on the TV in the local pub.
So you saw it as well as I did.
Exactly. But you know what the difference was? I actually went pub crawling that night, and I made a couple of friends. And that to me was fun. In the moment, being spontaneous and not having a plan as well. But the letdown, man.
Yeah, and the sad part is, in some way, shape or form, you probably burned through that year in some way to get to that point. Not even just December, not even just the month.
Because I booked my tickets a year in advance to obviously get cheaper prices. Yeah.
Exactly. So you were looking forward, and that's the thing.
That entire year went by so quick, man. It was hectic, but I mean, it's so true. The fact that you start living past life and looking up to these things and building those expectations just to get to the moment. And not being able to enjoy it because there's a lot of pressure on it, number one, or it just doesn't turn out as great. And then you're like, great, I've just wasted an entire year of my life. And on that note, by the way, and I've worked this out as well now recently, is if you waste a year of your life on the average lifespan of one person or one human being, right? It's 1% of your life that you've wasted. Wow. Okay, and it doesn't sound major, right? It doesn't sound major. But how many times do we set goals for ourselves that are 5-year goals or 6-year goals, and we can't wait until we get there, or we can't wait until we finished our degree, or we've
Yes.
gotten a new job, or gotten all the experience so that we can get a promotion. And so many times we just really push in, day out, just to realize that not only have we wasted 1%, maybe 4% or 5% or 6% of our lives just waiting for something good to happen, or planning your future as well. So that actually takes us to looking at it from the long-term perspective, right? So we've touched a little bit now on just, pushing through the weeks, pushing through the months. But what happens if you set a 5-year goal for yourself and you are so focused on making sure that plan executes 100%, 120% perfectly before you can actually start living, before you can actually enjoy your life? A simple example to this is obviously when we were all in high school, you couldn't wait for your life to start. You couldn't wait to finish school so that you can enjoy what your older friends are enjoying, having a car, having a job, being able to pay rent, being able to go out and party and do things with your own money without needing to ask your parents. But that really does still play a key role in our adult lives as well. We
Yes.
do that on an ongoing basis. And this is where I want to slow down and just share what I'm going through. And this is probably because in our last couple of episodes, we've been touching quite a bit on personality types as well. So it does play a key role in the type of personality that I have, or the personality style that I have, I think. But again, I shouldn't use that as a crutch. I should understand that one can only plan to a certain extent and then move past that. So that's something that I feel maybe you can share a little bit of insights on as well, Leon, because I feel like you don't necessarily always have a 5-year plan, or you've got an idea, you've got a sort of North Star, but
Yes.
you don't have a blueprint. And that's the difference, is I always try and work off of a blueprint, and it's driving me insane, dude. It's really, really driving me insane. I'm constantly analyzing, constantly thinking, is this the best route? I've gone as far as to actually sit down and create a mind map, dude. And I'm not kidding you. Like, literally sketched out, what are my 3 different options? Where will that lead me? Which type of turns or cause and effect will it have on my life? And which route is better to take at this moment? And because it all comes down to one moment, one choice. And it puts so much stress on me that
Pressure. Yeah.
I can't. I'm paralyzed by it, man. So that's what I want to get into right now.
Yeah. So the thing is, the way that you do it isn't necessarily wrong until it becomes debilitating. And then it actually has the adverse effect. It might actually stump growth. So what I tend to do, and I was very much the same, I actually used to literally write down everything that I want for weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, 5-year goals, 10-year plans. And the funny thing is, and I guess this maybe happens with time, so maybe this is one of the things that time just taught me. I don't know exactly where it shifted for me. I think it was when I started just laughing at life's irony. The way that life will show you that you cannot hard code your life. You can't. And life has a very, very sarcastic way of showing that. And the more you try and physically write it out, paragraph by paragraph, word for word, and try and almost be predictive over your life, the less that's going to be the case. So there's 2 things that I learned in the last 5 years, and I went and I really thought, 5 years has strangely blown past me, and I don't really know. But there's 2 things that I learned that I think made me a better person, definitely a more relaxed person, and someone that does not fixate over 10-year and 20-year and retirement goals and those kind of things too much anymore. And again, I'm not saying that I've put it out of my mind. That's just ludicrous. But to try and literally put a bullseye on a specific target and try and get to that exactly the way that I think it's going to be, and just letting go of that, is the fact that the first thing is I had to stop worrying about things I've got no control over. And that was very freeing for me. I used to be someone, we talked about this, and this rings a bell on many of our episodes, where I used to just stress and fixate and worry and get anxious about everything in life, everything that's not going my way. And I've learned, and I don't know why I was able to learn this. It kind of goes against my grain, and it also goes against my personality type. But I've learned to kind of let that go a little bit, and at least let go of the stuff I've got no control over. As soon as I realize there's not really much I can do about the situation, stop worrying about what you can still maybe do to try and change the situation. That to me was freeing, and that to me changed. It literally course redirected me in the right direction. The second thing, again, I think this might go against the grain of many people, but there's so much truth in this, and there is reasoning behind it. Stop taking life so seriously. All right? There's so much comical relief in things that happen in life. How many times have you gone through a thing in life, whatever it might be, but something that you didn't enjoy, of any nature, and said, yes, one day we're going to laugh about this. We're going to look back and we're going to laugh about this. And it would have passed and we would have been fine. And guess what? Time goes by, you passed and you're fine. And I've started applying those two things in my life, and that's really helped me to say, listen, I want to retire well off. I want to retire preferably with no more debt. I want to have grandkids. I want to have health. All those basic stuff is good enough. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be good enough off. I've stopped saying things like I want to retire with exactly this amount of million, and I'm going to go on a European tour, and then I'm going to go show my wife a volcano, and we're going to go on a yacht trip around the world. I've stopped just doing those kind of things, because those are, you can wake up tomorrow morning blind, and it's going to make no difference if you're standing in front of a volcano or in the middle of a street. You know, it really doesn't bring that value to you anymore. So it's almost like I'm still aiming at a general point of destination, but I'm not putting an exact pin drop on where that needs to be. Because once you do that, you start obsessing so much about the detail that it's going to take to get you there that you end up getting into analysis paralysis that we also spoke about, and you overanalyze everything in your life, and you plan, and you over strategize everything in your life, to the point where I've heard people that would, for example, put off a 3-year plan to do a European tour because they're not sure if they may get married that year. All right, and I listen to that and I think to myself, just do it. Just why are you overthinking it? Why wait? What's really the worst thing? That's the third thing. What's the worst that's going to happen? Are you going to die? Because if yes, then stop doing what you're doing. But if not, just do it. Live in the moment. Try and be in that moment and take that challenge and be a little bit reckless. Like, obviously, reckless in the sense of like thinking of what you're doing. But don't just put it off. Putting off, usually you inevitably don't do it at all. You get so paralyzed through data and points and measurements and things that need to fall miraculously in place. What are the odds that all of those things are just going to fall in place like a Tetris game?
That is insane, man. Like, we've probably discussed this to some extent in the past, but never in this context. And I think that's insane. That's
life is
really,
too
really
variable,
good advice.
man. It's too variable.
I think one of the things that stood out to me there is, I mean, if we have a look at the point that you can't plan out everything to the T, and that makes a lot of sense, because the more you focused on that plan, the more you screw that plan up. And I put that into an example. Say, for instance, we were to go and script out our entire podcast, which we don't do. And we decided on that consciously and on purpose.
It's intentional.
In the beginning, when we planned the podcast, is because we understood that if we had to go and write down everything that we wanted to talk about word for word, we would screw it up. And kudos to the people who can do that, right? But the same thing goes for your public speaking. Again, it's as much as you can prepare for it and prepare the topics and prepare everything. the more you get into your head about how you're going to do that and remembering each and every single word, the more you'll end up getting nervous, or you'll just mess it up completely and entirely.
Yes.
So it does make a lot of sense, man. I really do. Wow, I appreciate that. That's really, really cool advice.
Where I'm getting at with that in the context of this episode, obviously, is the fact that it's energy. It's all energy.
Yeah.
Energy, again, as time, energy is a finite resource. You only have that much energy in a day. If you, for example, I found myself, again, I'm so guilty of most of what I'm preaching here. So again, I'm not preaching because I'm doing this right. I'm preaching because I'm hoping to figure out why I'm doing it and fix it. But I would, for example, I remember there was a specific person, and let me rather use someone else. It's too embarrassing to talk about this in my respect. But that we knew a person, you're going to know who I'm talking about, that spent on average 4 hours a day researching where they're going to go on honeymoon during office hours.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And you know what's weird, what's very funny, and this is another thing that I realized in life. You know where he ended up going? The very, very first place he looked at that he liked. Yeah. He just ended up going to the first day, first hour that he did research, first place that he was. And that happens to me all the time. I'll go over 100 things and then realize I actually just came back to zero.
It's like going to a restaurant and saying, you know what, no, today I'm going to try something new, staring at the menu for 20 minutes and just going with your same old order. Yeah.
Cheddar melt burger, please.
Pretty crazy, man. Yeah.
That's true. And again, what I'm trying to get to here, because I feel like I've derailed a little bit, is the fact that this is all things that you try and over plan and over obsess, and the more you do this, the more it creeps into every aspect of your life, and that is what rushes you towards a goal or a dream or an expectation, and that rush makes you miss the moment. It makes you miss that moment. And it's funny when you have kids, and I revert to that a lot, because that's where you kind of don't want to miss moments, right? You don't want to miss those special moments. And I mean, yeah, I was unfortunate to have an 8x5 at office hours during both of my children's like young time. So I missed a lot of the big milestones. I missed the sitting up, the crawling, the walking, almost all the big ones, the first words, etc. But I remember the second born. I was there in that moment. I was actually not in that moment. I was busy watching. The baby was on my lap, and I was dozing off watching something on telly.
Days of Our Lives.
No, it was worse. I think it was, I don't know, Survivor or something.
Wow.
Yeah, and my boy said Papa, which in Afrikaans means dad. In that moment, like right there, it just happened. And even in that moment, I was slightly distracted. But I would have probably just that one quick, and he didn't say it again for like 3 days. Yeah. And those are like the little moments. And again, obviously in a child version, this is very acute and very special. So, but it's just a way to express what I'm talking about. Is that when you miss those little in-between moments.
But that's the one thing as well, is that technology actually plays such a key role in this. And I think we've all probably come across videos, or someone's mentioned this in the past to us, or we've scrolled past a post or a blog post or something of this in the past. But it really is just so crucial. And I think that's one of the things that I've also tried to apply to my life, is enjoying the little moments, enjoying and forcing myself to be present, because and this has worked for me short term, but I'm still struggling with the long term one, and hopefully, the tips that we'll get to in a couple of minutes will just clear things up.
Yeah, but you have to start with the short term, because short term is the one that compounds into long term.
It's micro habits building into actual habits, building into long term actual character.
You have to walk before you can run. It's like the same thing. We drove to my daughter's school this one winter's morning, and I was on a piece of road where I usually get extremely frustrated about traffic. Traffic in South Africa is the worst. Probably not the worst, but like one of the top 10 places. But I was sitting in the traffic, and I realized the lighting outside is strange. And I just had a look to my right, and I realized, wow, this is actually sunrise. When last have I driven around at dusk, right?
Yeah.
Right at the brink where sun was coming through the leaves, and I realized how mystical it looked. And that would have completely blown past me. It's weird, like the emotions that came over me in that weird moment. It was, I don't know, like just a very strange,
it's forcing
mythical moment.
Yeah, it's forcing yourself to just
Reflect
stop
a
and
bit.
just breathe
Yeah.
and reflect. Yeah, and even if that means putting away your device or turning off the radio, in that moment when you're driving.
If there's
or something
people
like
around
that.
you, spend time with them.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the biggest thing. If you, yes, like, I mean, how many times have you gone to a restaurant and the whole family's sitting on their glow face screens, And,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's like a perfect time to spend time, get to know your kids, get to know your wife.
And it's going to be uncomfortable, I think, at first, of course, because it's breaking old, crappy habits of yours. And breaking a habit is always the...
And everyone's in that habit. That's the problem. It might not just be you that's lingering for, I don't know, let's call it affection. It might be the other person's doing the same. But because the whole family's in the routine of just being in front of screens all the time, no one does anything. So
yeah, it seems normal, and it seems weird to
I know
break that normal.
It's really about getting into those small moments. The small moments add up to big feelings, which adds up to long term. So you were talking about long term. That's how you get to the long term, I believe, is by starting with the small things, making note of them, taking it in, and that will compound into the long term happiness and joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Leon, I think it's time to share the real life tip of today. And that's really, I think it's been a great episode. Let's quickly summarize. I think I wanted to quickly, before we get into the tips, these 3 things that I want to just point out here before we get into the tips. If there's something that you want to take out of this episode here today, it's these 3 things. Number 1, let go of the things that you have no control of. If you don't have control over them and you can't control the outcome of those situations, I think that really hit home to me as well, because I need to constantly remind myself of that. That's number 1. Number 2, don't take life too seriously. I mean, and I think I totally agree with you on that, because so many times in my life I've built things up in my mind and build it up in my head and just say that if this goes wrong, then that's going to happen, then this is going to happen. And I've recently had this episode as well, especially with the state that our country was in a couple of weeks ago with all the looting and stuff and the unrest. Exactly. And I just built it up in my head and I was like, you know what? I don't know. We're all going to die. Everything's going to, the whole world's going to burn down. And then,
and you're really not wrong. A lot of people felt like that, but
exactly. But at the end of the day, don't take life too seriously. So that's number 2. Number 3 was, what's the worst that can happen? If you take a shot at it, if you take a stab at it, or if you don't plan it, and blueprint your entire life out, or if you just put down your phone for a second or for a minute, or if you deactivate, or not deactivate, but even just delete social media off of your device for a week, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? The worst that's going to happen is probably what? You'll come back and you'll have to scroll through 15 new notifications of people tagging you in pointless stuff, right? So what's the worst that can happen if you actually spend some time just this week, actually taking some time and trying to live more in the present as well. So I think that takes us to the tips section, Leon, and I'm going to hand over to you. I've got 3 tips that I do want to share, or maybe 2 that I want to share that really have been the highlights in this episode for me. But over to you first.
Yeah, sure. So there's actually just 2 tips from my side this time around. I think this episode, again, is reasonably self-explanatory in the way that how this can benefit your life. I guess the tips that I want to give is how do you become more present, right? The first thing that you need to do is you need to stop thinking that being present is doing self-awareness, like finding self-evaluation, self-observation. That in and of itself is selfish. It's the whole point of this exercise of being present is being available to the rest of the world, whether that's people or being your surroundings. So trade your self-evaluation, self-obsession of why I'm not present in this moment, and just sit and observe. Look at your kid. If you're driving, like I said that morning when I saw the beautiful sunrise in the morning, just take that in. Let that speak to you. You're going to feel feelings. I felt feelings. I didn't look at that and say, wow, I should look at this. Why is this looking so nice? What am I feeling inside me? So just take it in. Let the world come to you. Just sit and observe. Don't go and think, what should I now be doing? That is in and of itself.
Feeling and how should
exactly.
I be
That's
it?
Once again going into the same routine of doing it wrong. And the second tip is, once you've now established what is coming to you in this moment, make a list. I'm very, very strong on writing things down and putting it on paper or out of your body into something that you can reflect on.
Yeah.
Make a list of, why was this important to me? For example, again, I'm using the beautiful sunrise in the morning. I think that took me back to when I was in kindergarten. My parents used to go and drop me off at kindergarten, brinking hours of the morning. And I remember that very, I don't know, like very intimate, nostalgic vibe that brought to me. And I kind of saw it in that morning sunrise. So try and figure out, what is it that's making it important. And again, we're talking very much in this podcast about human relationships. So if it's people that are surrounded and you're finding yourself not present in their dialogue, what they're expressing, their feelings, go past just the words. It's very, very easy to hear. It's not very easy to listen. Listen to what they're saying. Get behind what they're feeling behind those words. What are they actually saying? What are they trying to express? Why is this important? And just when you start analyzing it from that perspective, you get the value of, wow, okay, my wife just mentioned that she had a bad day. I forgot. I would have normally said, oh, that's tough luck, babe, or it's tomorrow will be better. Listen in and lean in and ask her why. What happened? How did you feel about that? What can we do? Is it maybe something you did? Is it something they did? Once you start figuring out why that moment was important, you're going to be much better at relationships, because you're going to be present in your relationships as well.
Yeah.
And all of these things helps you to stay in the moment and be present in the moment and selflessly present, not selfishly present.
I guess that's going to take...
That's the tips.
I love that. Dude, wow, you definitely take the tip crown tonight. I absolutely dig that. I guess that's going to take a lot of practice as well. It's something that, it's like a skill that you have to develop. So I would assume that it's going to be uncomfortable at first. These are some of the things that I think as well, that it's great, because you're going to have to practice them. It's not going to come naturally. You have to enforce the change in your life. Absolutely dig that, man. That is so powerful. I think from my side, I'm not going to be able to top that, but just maybe some key things that I took out of this episode as well, that definitely I will take home with me today and will apply to my life. And I've got two of them. Number one being, there's not always money needed to enjoy the moment. As much as we always build it up in our minds and everything, money isn't the be all end all of everything. So I think we need to break out of that mentality of saying, but I don't have money, so I can't enjoy the moment, so I can't go out, I can't do something. More recently I started planning or making a list of things that we should be doing on weekends, because if you don't sit down and do this, I've found that in my life, I don't do things on weekends and my whole life passes me by. And in that, we've actually split it up into different portions and say, what are the things that will cost us little to no money? What are the things that will cost us a little money? And what are the things that are weather dependent or things like that, right? And working off of that list, I found that we can go and picnic and go and hike or go cycling, and these things don't cost money, but they help you practice this living in the moment. And I found that really does help, especially in the short term half of it that I'm good at as well. And it's just something that I wanted to point out as a summary tip in here. Yeah. And then the second one is, be spontaneous. I think this is a key one as well. Yeah. Because as much as you try and plan things out, have you ever gone on a holiday that was just like, there was a special or something for accommodation, spur of the moment, jump in the car quickly, and those are the ones that you enjoy the most. Those are the things that you end up talking about years and years later. I remember, just as an example, one night we were having a couple of drinks at a friend's place. We wanted to invite a friend over, and we gave him a call, and he said, no, I'm at the South Coast, at the beach and stuff. I was like, dude, that sounds great. We'll see you there. And we hopped in the car. We drove there. 6.5 or 7 hours that we drove straight through the night for the weekend with all the camping stuff and everything quickly packed within like 30 minutes. We all hopped in a car, all 5 or 6 of us, and we headed down to Durban. And that was a highlight moment of my life. It's the spur of the moment. I enjoyed each and every minute of that.
I've heard that story a few times.
Exactly, because it's something that just stood out. Profound, it's something that So I think those are my 2 tips. Leon, I think it's been an amazing episode here. It's definitely shared some insight in my life as well, and I'll definitely be able to apply this. This is one of those
episodes that I can only describe as delightful. I think this
delightful,
it's one of those episodes that it's a soft topic. It's something that's not that serious, but it's something that I think fleshes out what is otherwise just a skeleton of a life. To put it like that. This is going to be, you cannot tell me that the in-between, which is the bulk of your life, should be ignored for only those little crowns that stick out. And I really need to work on this, man. I'm going to literally go and listen to this once you've post-edited it. and I'm going to really try and actively apply this in my life, man. I really enjoyed this topic, and I hope that you guys did too.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, how to break free from living in the future. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this content. I'm sure that you found it as valuable as I have and Leon has during the recording of this episode. We really hope that you learn how to live in the moment. We're on this journey with you. We support you. If you have any comments on this episode, reach out to us on our Facebook page. Drop us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And just go ahead and enjoy the little things in life. Until next time, this is me signing off. Mono.
You were joined by Leon. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We really hope that you have found inspiration or motivation from our content this far. If you want to get access to sneak previews to our upcoming shows on a weekly basis, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel or join our Facebook page, where we also share our blog posts and other great content from time to time. So head over to our Facebook and YouTube channels and feel free to share it with your friends so that they can also join you on the journey to success. Until next time, guys, cheers.